So I just heard that the science fiction author Werner Vinge has died. Um, he was he's very responsible for popularizing the way that we currently frame the notion of the singularity, which he didn't invent. So his version of the singularity is actually um, generally credited to I.J. Good. Um, it's called the fast takeoff. But anyway, very influential guy. Everybody's going to tell you to read this book of his, and you should. This is a Fire Upon the Deep is a great book. It's part of his. It's part of a series of his. It has sort of an interesting thing where the closer to the galactic center you get, the more effective technology is. And so you have kind of super technologies, but they only work in certain parts of space, and then the further out you get, the you know harder it is for any technology to work. He's a he also was a faculty member in I believe computer science or computer engineering, and so he incorporates computer ideas that if you're studying computer science you'll recognize into his science fiction. So, for instance, this book has a kind of race of, I don't know, something akin to a cross between a wolf and a prairie dog uh, that has distributed cognition where they're conscious only in groups of like three to five, and then a group bigger than that is kind of going to fall apart and get incoherent and not have a personality, and a group smaller than that is not going to have enough processing power or components to have like a consistent personality. Interesting book. Actually, what I'm going to recommend instead is this one, and part of the reason is that I met Vinji briefly at a talk he was giving while he was writing this book, and then it actually while he was researching the book, and some of the things that I had mentioned in the Q&A in the talk ended up showing up in the book. He doesn't credit me or anything, but I like to believe, for my ego's sake, that I had a slight influence on this book. So the premise of this book is essentially that um, so there are two elements to the world building. One element is that there's this experimental technology for or set of technologies, I should say, for rehabilitating senior citizens that have uh, uh, been through dementia. Essentially, they've come up with at around the same time a cure for Alzheimer's that mostly works, and a kind of a rapid de aging that kind of sort of works. And the main character is this cantankerous retired poet, real stuck up, like the most annoying artist type that you might meet, um, who basically is has what seems to be terminal Alzheimer's for many years, and then he's given this treatment and it works great for him. But now he and a bunch of other senior citizens basically go back to high school in a kind of a special program for bringing these people back sort of into the workforce, uh, and 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 so it's like, but they're also kind of in high school like bodies, kind of where to some degree the anti aging thing has functioned, and they've also noticed that the improvement in cognition is more utility based. It sort of the pe- the people who go into it may have started out with more of an artistic temperament, but by the time they come out of it, they tend to have more of an engineering temperament, and it's sort of implied that this has got to do with the culture of the people who are developing the treatment. Okay, the other side of this is that everybody has this augmented reality display um, in the form of smart contact lenses, and the whole world's economy has been um, rejiggered to be around that. And so, the same way that you can buy skins in the video game, there's this idea of, oh, people don't actually buy fashionable clothing anymore. Instead, what they do is they pay a smaller amount to they wear something very generic that's practical, and then they pay a smaller amount to have like a fake skin put on top of their body, um, that isn't actually there, that is as interesting as they want, right? And the same thing is true of buildings, and so all of the buildings are like these prefab, uh, like when they're putting together airport hangars, or when they're when they have to build something real fast, they use these prefab steel things. All the buildings are that, and then they've been skinned virtually. And so if you have your contact lenses out, you kind of can't tell that something is a school, right? Um, and these sort of aged down senior citizens uh, get involved in uh, some kind of in protesting some kind of plan to digitize their local university library, um, uh, that involves destructively, shredding the books in the process of digitization, because they have questions about whether or not it's actually going to be um, as good or as permanent as it's being promised to be. The book came out in 2006, um, and everything in it just keeps on getting more and more relevant. So I highly recommend you read that, because everybody else is going to tell you, this is Rainbow's End, by the way. Everybody else is going to tell you read a Fire Upon the Deep, and you should, but nobody talks about Rainbow's End, and they should.